All right, thank you. For those of you who are here, we are going to record this, just so you're aware. We're actually wanting to make sure that some folks who can't join us for today's live broadcast can actually be a part of this and learn from the experience and share the opportunity in the coming weeks. So we're going to share this recording after we're done. But thank you all so much for being here and for being part of the virtual National Conference on Citizenship this year. My name is Derek Somerville. I work at YMCA of the USA here in our DC office. Much like everyone else, we are still mostly virtual, but we're excited to be sharing with all of you today. The world that we have been operating in as the Y has changed drastically, much like everyone else's has. But at the same time, a lot of the things that we were wanting to do before the pandemic and what has happened over the last 2 years have really helped us bring into focus some of the work we wanted to do to better connect with partners like the National Conference on Citizenship and the folks on the ground that we collaborate with in middle schools and high schools around the country. So the presentation today will be all about how we brought those pieces together, the work that we're going to do with our civic health champions over the coming year, and how those of you who might have people who want to get involved, if you know an educator that might want to become a champion, how they can get involved this year and the funding we have available for them to take part. So we'll just start today with a quick overview of our agenda. We have a great group of panelists that are joining us. I'll give them each a chance to make a quick introduction in a minute. We're going to talk a little bit about why the YMCA and National Conference on Citizenship are getting together on this. I think a lot of folks might have there's one of the most complex things the Y deals with is we are a lot of things to a lot of people. So why are we getting involved in something like civic health? We'll talk about what the civic health champion role is, give you a brief overview of the different roles and responsibilities that go into that. We'll hear from some of our educators. We've got two folks who are on the ground in schools doing work on civic education that we want to hear their perspectives on. We'll talk to some of our staff and hear their perspectives on how these collaborations work and how they're adapting to whatever the new normal is in their community. And then we'll wrap up with some insights from them on how these collaborations really do foster stronger civic health and civic engagement amongst young people. And we'll give you a little bit of information on how to become a champion and the funding that we have available. And we'll wrap up with any Q&A that folks might have. And I know that for some folks who may have just joined, this is being recorded. So we want to make sure that any questions you ask, anything we do can be shared with folks who couldn't be with us today. So again, I'll start off. My name is Derek Somerville. I work at YMCA of the USA. I'm our Director of Civic Health and Youth Engagement. I work out of our advocacy office, helping coordinate all of our work around youth engagement, youth voices. I'm also doing a lot of work on how I better help our network of Ys. There are 2,700 YMCAs around the country. How we help them better empower young people and better empower the volunteers, and in most cases educators, to engage them in the civic life and civic health of their community. But I'm joined today by the real stars, and these are our panelists. We have two states that we're highlighting as part of our panel today. First is Michigan and also Arizona. So I'm going to go down the list because I see them all have joined us. So I'll give each of them a little bit of a chance to say hi. Lydia, do you want to kick it off?
Absolutely. Thanks, Derek. Hi, everyone. My name is Lydia Mitchell. As it says on the screen, I'm the Executive Director of YMCA Youth and Government in the state of Michigan. We are part of our state alliance of YMCA, so we're supported by all 26 YMCA associations across the state. And I have been running youth and government programs for almost, I was trying to do the calculation, about 15 years. I have been a volunteer or a staff in youth and government programs. And I'm also an alumni. So I did the program as a teen and never left.
And each state has one of their folks that work within schools with them today. Lydia, do you want to introduce our panelists from Michigan?
Yeah, so with us from Michigan is Janisa Cameron. She has been a teacher, advisor, as well as on the administration end at her school, but she's been involved as an advisor as long as I've been involved, but she also had her children went through the program as well. So Janisa, do you want to say hi?
Yes, I'm so glad to join this evening, coming from the perspective, or this afternoon, as a parent as well as a advisor for my middle school, the FLIX Foreign Language Immersion Cultural Studies School. So I'm excited to just share some ideas. Thank you for having me.
We're great. We're thankful to have both of you here today. And then I'm going to, over on the other coast, or the other, a few time zones away, I want to pitch it over to let Elise, our director in Arizona, introduce her program, her colleague, as well as the staff member or the educator she's brought along for the panel.
Thank you, Derek. Well, I'm really excited to be here. My name is Elise Millis. I am your Senior Program Director of Civic Engagement and Youth Leadership here for the Valley of the Sun YMCA, but I am the State Director for Arizona Youth and Government, so I also oversee two other associations, one in Yavapai County, and then the other in Tucson, which is in Southern Arizona. So a lot of ground that we cover here in Arizona for our youth and government programs and lots of other teen programming. My area is specialized in youth and government, and then the youth leadership development and civic engagement. So civic engagement from ages 5 all the way through adulthood here at Valley of the Sun. And then I also have my team member. He's brand new to the YMCA. I think he's just about a month and a half into the Y movement here in Arizona. Deontez Wimbley. Deontez, would you like to say hello?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Excited to be here with you all today, and happy to be on the panel. As Elise was saying, I am the probably the newest member of definitely a teen programming community, as well as the director of teen programs, and I work to support Elise with youth and government, and excited to be with you all.
Thank you, Deontez. And then we also have Eric Alvarez. He is brand new to youth and government as well. He is a teacher, a middle school teacher at the Cartwright School District, specifically the Glen L. Downs School in our Maryvale area, which is usually referred to as a lower economic area in Arizona. And we are really, really grateful for his work in joining the crazy world of youth and government, and giving some experience to the youth in his school to have some hands-on experiences within civics education and our legislative processes. So Eric, would you like to say hello?
Yeah, sure. So like you said, my name is Eric. It is my first time. I work at a brand new school that just transitioned into being a social sciences academy. And so I'm excited to get kids going with a lot of different programs. Youth and government is one of them. I'm excited to have our middle schoolers do it. For me, I feel like I'm excited to hear what people have to say and share so that I can bring that back, because there seems to be a lot of experience here. At my school, my title is Social Sciences, Equity, and Global Readiness Specialist. So it covers a lot, and I get to work with a lot of grade levels. So it's super impactful, and I'm thrilled to have Maryvale represented at the Youth and Government this year. I'm glad because I believe it's the first time that any school from Maryvale has participated. So I'm super excited.
And we're thrilled to have all of you here. Thank you so much. That is a wide variety of experiences and experience length from some who've been involved for a very long time to some just showing up. So thank you all for joining us today. I want to give a quick background before we go directly into things with our panel. So why are we here, and why the YMCA and National Conference on Citizenship? So the Y is an entity that's known to a lot of people for a lot of things. Broadly, we want to work to build strong and healthy communities through our 3 areas of focus, which are youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. Some of you might know the Y as a song you hear during weddings and dances. Some of you might know it as the neighborhood gym or the pool or the place you drop off your students for childcare. Some families might know us best as the best place to get food and supplies and support during any kind of emergency or just any kind of year if they might need some help. But for a lot of young people, the Y is really their first exposure to civic education and engagement. We've been doing our youth and government program since 1936. We've also been doing a lot of New American Welcome, what we now call New American Welcome Centers, but citizenship training and preparation for refugees, new arriving immigrants, and all kinds of new American communities all around the country. So civics and citizenship are a huge part of what the Y does in communities all around the country. And then, of course, NCOC, the event we're at, but more importantly, their work on measuring and improving the civic health of our community, states, and nation has been kind of a a trend, a leading voice in not just the civics field, but broadly about how our communities can improve their civic health. How do we work together? How do we come together to solve problems? I think it's become more and more vital that we emphasize and uplift the work of NCOC as we've seen our country go through all the things it's gone through over the past 2 years. And really what we were presented with this year was the opportunity to bring those together. So how could the Y strengthen youth civic health by supporting our educators who are in schools sponsoring programs like Youth in Government? And more importantly, how could we actually not just do a program, but do something more? And that brings me to this next slide, which is really what the Y is doing nationally. We want to move, we have this from to statement. We want to move from being a place where young people are engaged just as a program participant to a movement where young people are active contributors and stakeholders, not just in what they're doing in their programs, but in their communities and their schools. How do we help the Y remain relevant and inspiring action in those places? So this is one of the ways, this Civic Health Champions effort is one of the ways we want to help us move from to each of those statements. What is a Civic Health Champion? This is a brand new thing. This is something that we were starting this year. We're partnering with NCOC to recognize, train, and support educators, both in middle school and high school, to help them assess and strengthen the civic health of their schools. And that's through their sponsorship of our Youth in Government program. Youth in Government is, in its most basic sense, a model government program that mostly model state government, but programs like Arizona have model local governments. For programs like Michigan have all kinds of advocacy and national experiences that they do. So it's not just state, but it's broadly a model state government program. Our champions get 3 things. One is that we want to make sure they are supported, right? So they get an educator stipend varying by state. The 2 states that we have with us today, Michigan and Arizona, actually are providing stipends directly. We'll talk at the end about how there is some national funding available to any interested educator to join this program to get national funding from my office at Y of the USA. These students, these educators and champions sponsor and advise their students' participation in their Youth in Government program and events. And then more importantly, they set some civic health goals, both for their students in school and help us administer what we call our Youth Civic Health Survey, which is inspired by the work of NCOC and is meant to both talk to or provide a chance for our Youth in Government participants and their non-participating peers at their school to really give us some insight into their civic health. The civic health goals that we talk about through this program are really threefold. The first is representation. One of the things that the Y knows, and that probably a lot of us know when it comes to talking about programs, whether it's extracurricular or curricular, is that the civic space, while we want to make sure that we are helping improve civic health, in order to do that, the participants and the students we're working with really have to reflect and represent the different, what the Y calls dimensions of diversity within their student community. So how do we help teachers and how do we help our students better think about their school and the different dimensions that are present there and make sure they're reflected in the conversation and in the experience? Second is the overall civic health of the school. It's one thing, this is kind of where our transformation comes in. We don't just want students to do a program, right? That's good for that student. What we want to do is create the kinds of students that are catalysts for civic engagement amongst their non-participating peers. So how do they look outwardly at their school and say, okay, I have the tools and confidence that I need, but what are the ways that we can catalyze greater civic and support greater civic health amongst our other peers who might, never be a participant in a program like Youth in Government or a MICPA Challenge or a Boys and Girls State or any of the other awesome partners that we know are doing this work. And then finally, what are some institutional ways that teachers and faculty can work with administrators to think about civic health? This is really a space that we think educators have a unique role in because they do a lot of work both in the classroom and outside of it to shape what that environment looks like at their school. And that might not always be something that's directly working with their students. It might be something that's more with their colleagues. So we'll be doing our champions will do a quick action plan in the fall, and then they'll give us another report in the spring on how those are going. We'll be giving them guidance throughout the year. And then they'll also be turning in their civic health survey results. The civic health survey is 20 questions. It's inspired by the NCOC's Civic Health Index. So there's actually a panel going on about that if you want to pop over and see them. But they've done a lot of awesome work measuring the civic health of our communities, our states, and our country for the past, I want to say, over a decade. So the body of that work is really the inspiration for us to think about this on a youth end. So our champions will administer this question via our online portal to their participants, as well as their overall student body. So that's the quick and dirty of the champion experience. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, as Jamie just said. Otherwise, I won't bulldoze through. But what I want to get into now is, now that we have the idea of what that role is, we do want to talk first and foremost to folks who are already on the ground, already thinking about this work in schools, not just through the lens of the why youth in government, but civics and civic health in general. So we have 3 questions, and I'd like to have both of our educators kind of weigh in on each of these. So Eric and Janisa, we'll start with question 1, and I'll let whoever wants to go first take the lead. But the first question was, when we think about the civic health of our students in schools, how do you believe we can better ensure that civics experiences, whether they're curricular or extracurricular, better reflect and represent student populations in our schools?
I guess I could start. I think that one of the big things is just for students to have an understanding that they can play a role. There is a role for them. There's a space for them, and to start early. And I think the biggest thing that I would say is we need to start early. We need to start bridging those grade level from kinder to first to second. We need to make sure we're bridging those ideas, because in kindergarten right away they start talking about citizenship and that kind of thing. But you keep tying that in and you keep emphasizing that. And I think that right now we need to make and there is more of a push lately for civics, but I think that for so long it was such a focus on math and English language instruction that we kind of got away from that. And so I think just getting back into that, tying in from grade level to grade level, making sure there's that articulation, that make sure that we're all speaking the same language, so that students can hear it, keep hearing it, and understanding that there's a role to play and they fit in somewhere. So helping them to find where they fit in.
I would agree. I think that greater civic engagement, and I love the words that I've heard today, dimensions of diversity, inspiring citizenship. The YMCA programs definitely are leading in creating a stronger civic health and awareness, and starting at a young age. Just like when we talk about children and what they want to become, we don't wait till high school to talk about career planning. So if we are talking about building a model citizen, if you will, we want to start even in our preschool youngest ages and begin to build on that. I think civics education is important. Because it really provides like real world application and brings that book learning to life. It can be rather flat reading about it, but when you're engaged in it, particularly in programs like Michigan Youth in Government or any youth in government program, it really helps them walk through and see that real life application.
Thank you both. Yeah, no, I think early start is one of the most common themes that we hear. We hear that in so many other fields outside of civics and the why as well. So it's not something we're talking about when it comes to our healthy living priorities and the why, whether those are preventing chronic disease or making sure students don't have summer learning loss. It's perennial, and civics is part of that same conversation. The second question I had for you both was, civics programs or civic engagement opportunities often attract students who are already inclined to be involved in that process. What are some of the ways that schools and educators can utilize the passion of those students as catalysts for the students who civics might not ever be their big thing, but we want to make sure they're part of that conversation?
I think we want to really just universalize it, that civic engagement is for everyone. Everyone has a role to play. Civics engagement promotes problem solving, critical thinking, and really creates a historical paradigm or perspective from which kids can pull from. But again, it has to be broken down into a language that is something that they can relate to.
Love that. Eric?
Yeah, I think definitely the idea of accessibility, making it accessible to them. I think about I think from the group that I have starting this year with my first group, I think that they're a really passionate group, and so I'm excited to work with them. And it was the way that we brought kids in. There was a whole interview process, and so you could see the excitement for it, and you could see that some kids weren't there. They said, "Nah, that's not really something I'm into." But I don't think that they realized that they could be into it, that they really are. In the most positive way possible, I'm going to say this. I think that students and teachers are the best complainers. They can always point out, like, here's the problem, here's the problem. We're really good at that. But I think the next step to that is finding out what solutions are. So we give students a platform to say, to point out the problems, and then to help them develop some ideas for solutions. That problem solving, that critical thinking. I think that once the group that I have now, if they can demonstrate to the others what they've done, what problems they pointed out, and what solutions they came up with, and how they engage civically, I think that's how we do it. I think we take who our leaders are, and we have them become leaders for the others.
I love that. That connects into the universality comment that Denise made, which is everyone's got problems. Like, we are really good at the complaining part, where the question is, how do we make them recognize, or how do we get them the confidence to recognize that's actually what we're trying to get them to think about in a civic process, is the answer to that. And that is as universal as it comes. It's not about being a government kid or being a civics kid. It's about being someone who wants to help, take action on that. I love that. So our final question that we had was, so this is, again, a little bit more institutional. How can educators work with their fellow faculty and administrators to lead institutionally in support of civic health at their schools?
I'll start by saying, I think it's just a big part of it is keeping the conversation going. I think, it needs to be, if there's a program that's happening, and let's say it's from September to December, that program happens from that time period, we don't want to stop then. We want to keep the conversation going, like, this is what we did from here to here, and here's what we're going to do going forward, and here's what we're going to do the following year, and here's how you can help. And I think it always comes back to helping people find where they fit in, helping them find, just to find that space and that place for their voice to be heard. I think that teachers, a lot of times, maybe because they're a math teacher, that they think that civics is outside of what they're doing, but being able to understand that we're all going to be able to tie this in. We're all working towards the same goal. And we all have this understanding that we have a diverse group of students that really need to be engaged. All of them need to be pulled in, and how can we help pull them in? So it's just a conversation. I think it's just a continuous conversation. I think sharing the successes that we have with working with students, and letting other teachers see that. And I think it's inspiring, and they're going to want to jump in and be part of that conversation.
I would agree as well. I think, we already have the framework in place, student councils, PBIS, leadership teams or programs, utilizing the Roberts Rules of Order, teaching those very elementary, in a very elementary manner at a young age, advocating, being a delegate, organizational councils, clubs, and activities. These are institutional ways in which we can encourage civic engagement. And then also encouraging students to go out into their community to do community service, as well as being involved in various organizations. We have the framework. We just have to encourage it. We live in a culture right now where, kids are video gaming, and it's very easy to couch potato it up. And, we've got to get moving. We've got to encourage not only a physical campaign of getting out there and moving, but also a mental engagement. And we can see that the climate in which we're living in right now, that everyone has a voice, and every person's voice should be heard. But what if we don't engage in spaces where we can be heard, then our voice is silenced. So I think children, want that. and teens and tweens. And so we just have to encourage it. I know that youth in government has been very instrumental in my children's development and finding their voice. From running as a gubernatorial candidate to serving as Speaker of the House, or being a delegate for a school and submitting a bill. Students don't realize that they know things that need to be fixed. They know things that need to be impacted in their community, and they just need to be given a platform in order to share those ideas.
We brought up a couple of times the current climate, and I think I'll put you both on the spot one last time, because I think it's worth talking about. Is right now, I think, especially in schools, the subjects such as civics are currently kind of being included in a larger conversation of how do we talk about things that can seem divisive, right? That can seem partisan, that can bring out disagreements and really passionate ideas that may in some spaces feel threatening, feel just uncomfortable. How do you see, what do you see as some best way forwards to talk with colleagues or parents or community members who might have some concerns around where civics heads in your school and how you're hoping to use it as a convening space that's welcoming rather than one that that kind of is falls prey to those kinds of characterizations?
I think the first part is that there is a space for that passion, and we don't want to stifle that passion. So if the way that students are feeling, I think that there's a space for that. But I think what's not being it's not that it's not being taught. I think what we need to focus on more is the listening part. I think one of the things that I really like about this program is that when they're creating political parties, so it's not Democrat, Republican, it's something different. And so the students that are developing this, they're having to come up with ideas, these democratic ideas, like how can we move this forward? What are the best ways we think this government should be run? And it's taken outside of what's on TV and what's coming out of adults' mouths. And it gives them that opportunity to look at and say, what do I want? What do we want? What's going to benefit us? What's going to be the most impactful? So I think, and then that passion is still going to be there. They're still going to hold on to these ideals that they helped come up with, that they found to be important and worth discussing and debating. But getting back to just debate in itself, I think that's very healthy. And like I said, you start young. You debate chocolate milk or white milk or strawberry milk. Let's start with those small things. And when we can have those healthy debates and healthy conversations over those disagreements, I think as we get older, we can get into the larger ones. And I think that that's the conversation we have with parents. We say that it's extremely healthy to be able to debate and to have your stance and to hear someone else's stance and to, in a healthy way, argue that. So I think it's just starting small, building out, and not shying away from it, because I think the worst thing we can do is shy away from it, because we do not want to, as I said, stifle that passion that they already have inside them, and a lot of them just don't know it yet.
Sure.
Yes, I would agree. And I would just have to say that sometimes through discomfort, we can create, greater comfort and greater dream building. We can build off of that passion into something that we all believe in, that is beneficial to everyone. I don't really have the words right now to speak to it, but I just know that, we have to be willing to listen. We have to be willing to empathize. We have to be willing to be change makers. And I just think doing that right now, with these kids and creating that vehicle to dream a world that they want to see together, it has to start at a young age, so we can create that common voice.
Completely agree. Well, thank you both for all of that insight, especially as we, one of the things that we are committed to as we go forward on this is this is not a role or a program that we ever want to see as static. It's something we always want to see as evolving. And we've all had to evolve, I think, more than we wished. And from logistical facets this last year, clearly the conversations we're having, growth out of discomfort, as you just mentioned, Nisa, are something that we want to make a mainstay, making sure that we're always giving students that space. I want to turn quickly now over to the Y colleagues to get some information, basically get some feedback from them. So I'll start with our first question to the Y staff. How do you guys see the Y serving as an effective civics partner for educators in schools that are currently dealing with both pandemic-related constraints as well as obstacles, limitations that were already there for schools even before the added complexities and challenges of COVID-19? And I'll pitch that to either of the three of you who want to go first.
I'm happy to go first, but I'm also happy to defer. I think
you spoke, so you're up.
Yeah, I think for me, the way that we as the Y support these programs is making sure that we let each of us kind of take the thing that we're experts at, right? So we're recruiting teachers because you're teachers, you're educators. Many of our advisors, as we call them, are teachers who are teaching civics. So we don't necessarily have to be in the classroom because you're in the classroom teaching the principles of civics. What we do at the Y is then provide the platform for you to bring those kids together with other kids from different communities, for you to lean on us for resources like dimensions of diversity or youth leadership or how to help young people be facilitators. So we really, I think for me, youth in government and the Y's partnership with these schools is really about bringing together those two types of expertise. In Michigan, with the way we talk about it, is our social studies standards are one pillar of responsible citizenship. And so the social studies classroom work is done by teachers, and we provide kind of the pathway from the classroom to our events, to our programs, for those young people to take what they're learning from you as an educator and put it into practice as Janisa calls it, as a change maker. So that's really, the partnership is crucial. We need each other in order to make sure that we can reach the kids in your communities and we can bring them together with other kids from other parts of the state and eventually parts of the country. That's the advantage we have with the Y because we are nationwide.
I definitely agree with you, Lydia. I echo all of those points that you made, and I'd have a couple of other ones, but thinking about partnering with teachers, these students feel the safest with their teacher already. They've built this relationship, and developing and sharing their thoughts and ideas is so much more easy than a student coming to the Y, learning who Miss Elise is or who Mr. Deontes is. They already know Mr. Alvarez and they're comfortable speaking with him and sharing their ideas, and it's a safe and comfortable place that they go to every day. I think that that's key to our partnerships. And then as well as the pandemic has created learning loss, and Arizona is ranked very low in education overall, and we're providing this extra experience for students to participate and learn and grow each year, and they can participate over and over each year, which is, I think, very, very special and beneficial as they grow as young adults, but we're preparing them to be civically engaged and have skills when they graduate high school. So I think that partnering with the schools and then also assisting in some of that learning loss that we had over the pandemic, making this so much easier for the teachers to implement this project and let students try things and find their voice and share it. And we have the platform to do that. And training the teachers is, like you said, like they are the educators. And that may not be my expertise, but helping these teachers along is a lot more aligned with what the Y can do and support. So I think that that is definitely key to some of these relationships.
And Elise, we had a question from Deb in the chat about specific examples of initiatives that are direct results of Y support. Do you want to talk about a little bit about the advocacy and local government stuff you guys worked on this past year as a result of some of the work you're doing?
Yeah, so we created this youth advocates group in early 2020. 21 with the legislative session. I couldn't think of what year we're in. And our students actually helped write our legislative priorities booklet. And we advocated directly with our local representatives for, one of them was preschool funding, drowning prevention funding. Arizona is one of the drowning capitals of America. So we had the students learn about each of those, and they spoke to our legislators and asked how we can support this bill as youth advocates. Is there another senator or representative that we can reach out to help push your initiative? And it was quite amazing to see these students who did mock legislative programs and put that into practice as they spoke to legislators, because they knew the process. They're like, oh, your bill is, in committee. How can we help you get it to the floor? And the students were so eloquent when speaking to these legislators. It was absolutely amazing. And getting our voices out there was quite amazing, and have really made a great partnership between these students, the YMCA, and our local government. And they are just overly passionate, and it was absolutely amazing to see all of it come together. And then making it bigger and better this year for more advocates to join our program and get that moving forward.
And then the work with the NLC and the local governments. Sorry, I'm helping you brag a little bit on the, she teed it up really well. So I want to make sure we talk about those two things.
For local government, we created a model city program over the summer that allowed students to participate and learn local government and create some connections there and really think at the local level. So that was really, really cool to see them experience that as well. I think that was your question, right, Derek?
Yeah, you're good. Sure.
Okay, I was like, maybe I'm going the wrong way. But yeah, Model City was really, really cool for our students to experience and continue their learning. Youth in government is usually a semester long, and we've really tried to create a year-long experience where students can do youth in government in the fall, advocates in the spring, and Model City in the summer, and continue that learning process throughout the year with some different civic engagement aspects. And then we've also done some kids vote programs where students can go into the YMCAs and pretend to vote alongside their parents on election day, which has been really, really unique to us and special. Just getting more and more experiences in civic engagement and practicing for when they become adults.
Awesome. So the second question, kind of building off of what you just mentioned, Elise, what are some of the assets that a program like yours or the Y or can offer students, both from an extracurricular lens, but also I think to teachers who are working with these students in a classroom setting as well? Do
you want to go first, Elise?
I can continue talking if everybody would like for me to. Yeah, I mean, just creating these experiences has been really beneficial to our students, but bringing these extracurricular activities outside of the classroom allows for students to meet others who have other ideas and share passions and also challenge each other. But, as well as that comfort of their classroom safety and the learning group around them has been really, really beneficial. I think that was what I was answering, but I'll turn it over to you, Lydia.
Well, and I totally agree. And what I would add, and I think Eric touched on this a little bit, right? So what youth in government or any of the other programs that bring young people together from across communities brings it to life, right? It's real flat on the page. You can read about someone else's political views, but when you meet someone who has a differing view from you because of their life experience, and you meet them and you hear about that life experience and you debate with them on the floor of the House or the Senate or in a committee, and then frankly the way we do it, right, then you go to a dance or a talent show or lunch, or you do the YMCA core values activities, right, the fun. When you do those things together, what it does is it brings to life the humanness of the person who you disagree with. And that's something we can't necessarily do in the classroom, and you can't necessarily do in one community. You certainly have people who disagree, but the example we always use is when our young people write bills about regulations about their roads, their experience from a rural community and their roads and a more urban community and their roads is very different. And to understand what a horse and buggy looks like in a rural community, or what the need for lanes in a more urban community that has buses, what those needs are, you can talk about them on paper, but until you meet someone and hear their life experience, it doesn't come to life in the same way. So that's whether it's youth in government or Boy State or MITSCA, it doesn't matter. It's bringing kids together to talk about what's important to them, and then to hear from other people what's important to someone else and why. And that's the difference that those experiences can make in a kid's life. Everything we then say that they learn from it comes from that. The other piece I would add is, I think, to the question, Deb, about other specific initiatives, every youth in government state has a list of bills that have passed that started as youth in government bills. So here in Michigan, we talk about going backwards. The most recent one, there was a lift on feminine hygiene products tax just this month here in Michigan, and that started as a youth in government bill. We had changes to our state testing standards about 10 years ago, started as a youth in government bill. So every state's got examples like that of initiatives that started in their youth legislatures that then went to their actual legislatures.
Thank you both. And I guess kind of the final question that just to the staff alone is, why is this role of champions an important part of your why strategy when you collaborate and work with educators in schools? And maybe Lydia, you want to give a little bit of context over the work you guys have done this year with both your legislature as well as your schools.
Yeah, so we simply can't do it without the local support. For the most part across the country, these are teachers. These champions are teachers in the schools who recruit and meet the kids. And we can provide statewide infrastructure, and we can coordinate events, and we can train teachers to bring kids together. But the work of finding kids in your community and keeping them engaged throughout the year has to be done at the local level. So, here in Michigan, we've been relying on them for 75 years. We've just been relying on folks as volunteers. And for the first time this year, we've been able to invest capital into these teachers and pay them the stipends they've always deserved to do the work. And some of our schools have been supporting that. We've got about 35% of our school districts were paying stipends to these teachers, but that number was far too low. And so we actually took a young person and advocated to our state legislature that there needed to be a teacher stipend. So our youth governor made the ask, and our House and our Senate education committee stepped up and said, "You're right. These teachers need to be compensated for the work that they're doing." And so having the stipend has been crucial in making sure that we're giving teachers the resources and the assets they need to work with the kids, because it takes time. We want it to not just be a side project, right? Teachers who can spend time intentionally with their kids working on preparing for the conferences, working on doing solid research, working on practicing those skills to meet new people and share your story. Those are the things that we are investing in, and we can't deliver those. We need the teachers locally to deliver them. So it's a partnership that has to be done, and we're really excited to be expanding it and supporting the national effort to add champion stipends across the country. We're very lucky in Michigan and Arizona to have our own set of funding, but we are really looking forward to how we can help scale this so that it is possible everywhere, not just where we are.
Yeah, and Lydia, I'd like to echo what you said also. Like, these teachers are so deserving of this. They have hundreds of other things that they have to do, and this is, something that we want them to do. And adding this stipend, it just makes it all the more easy for them to sign on and get these kids involved, and allows us to reach further areas. Typically, we've been pretty close in the Phoenix metro area, and then we have Tucson, but this has allowed us to expand across the state of Arizona and allow students from different backgrounds and different teachers with different backgrounds to join this program. So it has been so beneficial to spreading the why message, but also to expanding civics education further than what our YMCA walls can reach. We have 13 branches here at Valley of the Sun, and there's not enough team staff to do this every day and be this recruiting and trying to find kids. We met them where they're at. The kids are at school. Why make them travel to a YMCA that's 30 miles away to join this program? We're meeting them where they're at and allowing them to have this experience and learn about themselves. So I think that is extremely important. And these teachers are so deserving, because it's not just oh, we're just going to show up at the Capitol and it's going to be so much fun. It is a weekly project that they're working on and developing these kids. And it's very, very special to be able to do this and have such great funding. Ours didn't come from the state legislature. It came from some really, really generous donors, and we are so appreciative of them, because they believe in this project and believe in creating civics education for our youth in Arizona, because it is so important to be healthy and civically engaged at all times in Arizona.
Yeah, well, and Elise, taking it even a step further, we've talked a little bit about the front end of it, right? We need the teachers in the community to reach the kids, but we also, we need that connection with the school and with the community to go back and, and say, this is the impact those students had over a period of time. This is the impact the program has had on the community. So, so much of what we do is student-led, student-run. It's, each year the topics that are student-led, student-run, but the teacher is the champion is the institution, is the person who's there for 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, beyond that, so we can continue to show and demonstrate the impact that having these young people come to these programs is having on the school and on the community as well.
And then, from a national lens, the reason we're investing in the why is we know that to better understand where our schools are at, or where our young people are at in terms of their health, both, whether it's physical, mental, or civic health, we have to work with folks who are dealing with them every day. And that's not just the why, that's in schools. So for us, it's about helping us measure things like civic health in a broader way. Who better to do that than folks who are already collaborating with us directly with young people? And how do we then work with them to think about not just the students who are doing their youth and government experience, but their larger student body as a whole, and how we can gain data that can help not just the why, but other partners and other entities that want to think about civic health more broadly in communities. We can use that data to help inform those conversations. So that's where this comes from a national lens as well. So thank you both. Kind of wrapping the conversation up just with kind of bringing those two segments together, collaboration. I guess, this can be for anyone, educator or staff or both. How was your experience collaborating with others to strengthen your work or impact at your school and organization? And I know a couple of you have already touched on this in some of your prior answers.
Everyone's jumping to answer. So, I mean, I think for me, the piece that that I come back to is that the schools can run a civic classroom, right? And we've got a couple of our schools, run this program in their classroom for lots of students, and that's great. But it's every time we hear stories about how youth in government has impacted my life, or how youth in government has impacted something I've done in my community, it's about that connection with someone else. And so we can, we can send out curriculum. There's lots of different civics curriculum out there, and that's great. And you're teaching a really important information to students, but that's just the first step. So coming together, schools collaborating with each other, schools collaborating. We've got some schools that collaborate with their Ys locally to bring kids from different schools together into their youth and government delegation. It's that connection. I sound like a broken record because I've said it on every answer. It's that connection with people that you otherwise wouldn't meet. At the heart of what we do in civics, it's about community and our democracy, right? It's about the future, and the future will not exist in a bubble. None of us will be alone in the future. We will have to rely on each other. So it's that connecting with someone who you would not have otherwise connected with, that for the students, for the teachers, for me personally, that's what's had the impact. And you can't do that without collaborating with each other.
And if I could just add to that from a parent perspective, even though I'm the advisor for the FLIX delegation, as a parent, I saw my children find their voice. I saw my children begin to engage about issues that were happening in their community and surrounding community, and realizing that they had an opinion and that their opinion could matter. I saw my children not only put on the clothes and go up to Lansing, but actually stand at those podiums and sit in those seats and really see themselves as, oh, I'm a part of the legislation. I'm a delegate. And then even in some of the most uncomfortable situations and conversations that sometimes happen on the high school and even in the middle school level, to realize that everybody's voice matters. We all come from different living situations, whether it's rural, urban, suburban, and that our life experiences are the sum of who we are. But when we know better, we do better. So no matter where I live and what my political affiliation is, if I value people and what is right and humanity, then I'm going to make decisions and I'm going to start at a young age, respecting others and their differences. And I think Michigan Youth in Government really, just promotes that type of thinking at such a young age and creates voice and advocacy of issues.
I can hop on and kind of answer some of this too from Valley of the Sun perspective. We talk a lot about relationship building, not just with our youth and with the teachers, but with the school as a whole, and offering other resources to them. A lot of our partnerships for other programs have stemmed from this youth in government program that we've created, this relationship with Eric's school in the Cartwright School District, being able to come into their school and do CPR training for their teachers, or drowning prevention, safety around water teachings. There's so much more opportunity than just youth in government, and sharing and compiling ideas. If that school has an idea for the why to run something for them, we have also had an open door policy of letting them share those ideas and looking to the why as a resource, so that they don't have to add more and more partners. But as we are experts in childcare and water safety and healthy living. So we also look at it from that perspective, as a YMCA partner and not just for youth in government, even though this is a specific specialized area that we're looking at this through today.
Thank you both. So the final question before we kind of wrap things up today is, if a school or educator were looking to collaborate with an organization like the Y on these subjects of civic health and engagement, what are some of the most important considerations they should keep in mind? And again, that can be from the Y's end or the school's end. And then Elise and Deonta is in Arizona. Do you want to kick that off?
Well, I'll definitely say if a school educator wanted to collaborate, an email is absolutely the easiest way to really get that ball rolling. Elise mentioned our open door policy. If someone were to say, hey, we would love to get involved, and even if so we also collaborate in such a way to where say that there's an after-school program or some other non-school entity, or a parent, like say we had a parent, um, like others who, my child is interested in this, we find ways to also work in to work in collaboration with that as well. And it all really starts with an email, a phone call, word of mouth. As the moment Elise and I become aware of it, we get the person connected as quickly and efficiently as we can. And so the great thing about how we are situated in Arizona is we have, particularly within the Phoenix metro area, but also even outside the Phoenix metro area, we have branches all over the place. So I think there's another benefit of the Y is just how far reaching we are in our various states. And so if someone who isn't necessarily in close vicinity to where we are, we have a branch that we can get them connected to. And that also goes for schools. And so email, phone calls, word of mouth, within a very brief period of time, we'll get someone connected.
And Deontes, you actually answered, without realizing, I think, answered a question we had earlier from John, which was how do other organizations, not just the Y, get involved in champions work? And you kind of hit on it there. It's not just about a school. It can be, we have other partners and agencies that we work with, whether they are public or private or nonprofit groups that already work with young people and want different opportunities and want other ways to do this. I know that in Seattle, we're exploring how to collaborate on this champion initiative with the Boys and Girls Clubs there, and in Kentucky, that's around. And there's Kiwanis clubs and others that are doing that are looking for other community spaces that are just as vital to the fabric of civic health as other ones. So that's a great point you brought up, is that collaboration isn't always binary. It can be parents and other things too.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's baseball team, like just their friendly neighborhood baseball team, if someone's youth group at their church, if someone's like, no matter who it is, like you have a volunteer team that goes and clean up the street every day. Well, that's a policy issue. Come join youth in government, right? So it's really just making everyone know that they have a voice because they have an issue. And so like if there's a group that is looking to get connected, I don't know if it also works for you, Lydia, up in Michigan, but I feel like it all really just starts with an email.
You're totally right. I agree with everything you said. And I think what you also hit on is what we want is to engage with community. And because we're the Y, we can do that, right? It doesn't have to be limited to just the schools or just the school districts. There's all, I don't know how it is in Arizona, but in Michigan, there's a lot of conversation about which school district you're in and all the rules around that. We're the Y. We cross all kinds of territories and lines and county lines and all of those things. So I think that's totally true. And you also hit on a little bit, an email, a phone call. Most of us are functioning with a shoestring marketing budget. We rely on word of mouth. We rely on you as educators talking to your peers, to your friends, and saying this is a great program. The majority of our new growth often comes from a student or a teacher who did the program at one school and is now at a new school. So, and I think that's true of all programs that are community-based like ours, right? Our goal and our focus is on program delivery, and it's not always on a strategic marketing plan. So just reach out to us.
Thank you both for that. And that's, I think, the end of that equation is how we keep this connected and why the champions role is about kind of providing a pathway for new members of the community to be a part of this. So we're going to wrap things up today. Thank you again to all of our panelists for joining us, providing your insight. This last slide here just kind of gives folks who are listening, as well as those who will be watching on the recording, how to get involved. So educators can be a part of this, can register to be a civic health champion all the way through to the end of the fall semester. And we put fall semester because for some of you that might be in a couple of weeks. For some of you that might be, all the way up until the start of the new year. So ymcayag.org/champions is the hub you go to register. We mentioned that states like Arizona and Michigan are providing stipends directly to champions, but Y the USA here on my end is also working to do kind of our national cohort of 20 champions or more all around the country. So these are available to any educator anywhere in the country that wants to be engaged. So if you're listening to this in some state and didn't hear your state today, that's totally fine. We want to work with you too. The only qualifications is that you must be at a school or high school for our national funding, I should say, is that your school's new to the program or that you are in your first year. Those most folks will fit in one of those two if this is something new to you, that to help us expand the work, but also work with your school. The deadline for folks who are interested in joining is December 2nd, so it's about a month from now. Folks who want to register and be considered for that funding. So that is the quick and dirty of how to actually get engaged. I wanted to give a big shout out again to all of our panelists, as well as to NCOC for helping us host this and helping us along the way. Jamie Engel and I will be working with champions throughout the coming months as they engage in their work, and we'll hopefully have some exciting information to share with not just the Y and NCOC, but everyone involved about results from the work of our champions and some of the survey results from our Youth Civic Health Survey. So I think we're out of time. So Q&A, if you have questions, what I'm going to ask you to do is email me. So here's my contact information. If you have any questions, both those of you who are with us today and who might be watching in the future, thank you all for joining us. Thanks for coming to NCOC virtually today, and we are looking forward to meeting many of you in person as soon as we possibly can. So thank you to Eric, Janisa, Lydia, Deontes, Elise, Jamie, and everyone for making this possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you all to the speakers. This was amazing.
Thank you all. Y'all have a great one.
Thank you. I just dropped the NCOC/Accelerate link into the chat. And so we will be reconvening in about 12 minutes in the main Zoom room. So you can find all that information right there. Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And John, I think we're going to stop recording if you haven't already.